former 13-year relief pitcher, Jake McGee. Jake, what's up, buddy?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and I want to thank Nathan for, landing us you. I know you're a busy guy, 13 years in the major leagues. Well, obviously you play for the Giants, an organization that has found ways to win, and they know how to find pitchers. Tell us a little bit about your time with the San Francisco Giants.
Giants, it was really cool because we was living in Florida and we moved to Reno, Nevada, and it was only 3.5, 4 hour drive to San Francisco. And luckily I was a free agent, went there and actually played with the bullpen catcher or the bullpen coach who was there, Craig Alvarez. And now he's the bench coach for Stephen Vogt. And they had a really young staff, and Andrew Bailey's the pitching coach there. And it was great. They're really on top of their game. And he would send me videos of how my ball's moving and highlights after every game.
So you played for a team early in your career that had one of the greatest regular season comebacks, the 2011 Rays. What was that run like, getting into the playoffs the way they did and the Red Sox falling apart the way they did?
That was probably one of the craziest games I've ever been a part of because I remember sitting in the bullpen and we were losing 7-0. I think Mark Teixeira hit a grand slam off of David Price earlier in the game. We're like, we're done. And then all of a sudden later in the game, we ended up tying the game and going to extra innings. And I actually pitched that night, got the win. And I pitched the night before and got the win. I didn't even think I was going to pitch that night. But how it all worked out with like the fans seeing the other game lose, and then Longoria literally hit the home run like not even a minute later, and the whole stadium went crazy.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, thanks, Jake. Good reminder. Appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, did you pitch in that game too?
No, I didn't. I want to say Proctor gave it up, I believe.
Yeah, Proctor was on the mound. Yeah,
that was like his second stint after 840 appearances under Torrey. But
yeah, right.
I mean, he ran him out there all the time. But no, I think it's always funny. Obviously, we kind of came up together and played each other all the time, and so
yeah.
But playing with like all the other teams, because you played for a few more than I did. Like, did you take a piece from each team, or did you just try to turn the page when you win it? Because I know sometimes it's hard to distinguish, especially when you play 4 or 5 years with a team, to kind of break that cycle and it's always weird going into the visiting clubhouse when you've been on a team for that long. So did you take like a piece with each team, or did you just try to turn the page and start over?
I kind of took a piece with each team, and then every team was a little different. Luckily, majority of the teams were very heavy analytical, except for the Rockies. So they're still a little behind the curve a little bit with some of that. But once I got traded to the Rockies, I talked to the GM and assistant GM, and we got kind of things moving with the analytical side, and getting Rapsodos and TrackMan and kind of learning more of that. But I think from starting at Tampa, I had a super good building block. They'd give me how my pitch movements, how to pitch, just use my fastball up in the zone. And then by the end of my career, luckily I was able to play with the Dodgers and the Giants. And, they run really good organizations, really good communication and trainers, and, keep guys healthy, really well.
We are talking a former 13-year vet relief pitcher, Jake McGee. He pitched from 2010 to 2022 with the Rays, the Rockies, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Brewers, the Nationals, won a World Series with the Dodgers. As you know, he probably has a very beautiful ring that he keeps in a safe. Jake, the UCL tear is a very common injury right now for pitchers. A lot of people have been going back and forth and arguing why some of these pitchers are having injuries like this. What do you think is the reason why these UCL tears have been so bad for baseball right now?
I think with some of the guys, it's training with the heavier balls and the weighted balls. And if you've never really trained with it and your arm path's already kind of set, and then you try to throw heavier balls and, and then gain velo, and your body's not really used to gaining velo that quick, and your muscles aren't really used to it either, I feel like. And I think my biggest thing is I think you have to do your arm exercises before and after the game. But I think the biggest thing is the weighted balls and the training programs in those ways. And when you throw an 88 and all of a sudden you're throwing 94, your UCL doesn't have time to catch up in that amount of time, you know.
So your training program, the Pitching Performance Nevada that you have been running for a while now too, what are some of the points of emphasis you have in that type of pitching program? And do you think some of those concepts could be adopted to higher levels to make sure this doesn't happen as much?
Yeah, definitely. When I started doing lessons, I'd have a lot of the kids use like a water ball on the mound, using like lighter med balls, and then we use plyos. We don't use the plyo over 8 ounces. So starting with a foundation that way. And my biggest thing when I tell all the kids is do your armbands before and after. Every time you throw off the mound, do some kind of armbands every time. I did that pretty much my whole career, and luckily after I had my Tommy John, I didn't have one shoulder problem after that. And I think a lot of times some of the kids, they'll just throw off the mound and not do anything after.
Yeah. Did you think too, like the misuse of it too? I'm not saying misuse, but overuse. Like not enough kids take a season off, or they take time off because sometimes less is more. And do you think overuse and not resting is leading to that too? And I've never been a fan of weighted balls either. But yeah, do you think that's part of it too, that helps into this or hurts in this situation?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think it's usage and understanding how much you're throwing off the mound on all the weighted balls and all the other things you're doing. You listen to your body a lot of times and can't push it too hard. And if you're doing weighted balls and then you throw a 45 pitch bullpen, it's not good for your arm. And I think a lot of the kids, they don't even take time off in the off season. For your arm, if you don't build up enough and build up the right way and have the right throwing program too.
Now, obvious, Trevor Bauer has been a big story for baseball over the last couple of years. And Trevor Bauer was a Cy Young winner. This guy has been a dominant pitcher. He went over there to Japan. He was a Cy Young. He was the best pitcher in Japan. In Mexico, he's the best pitcher in Mexico. He was accused of something and then went to court, and everything was dropped. And baseball has not allowed him to come back. When you look at these stories and obviously who Trevor Bauer is, and I don't know him personally, maybe you know him, Joba knows him, obviously he's not too fond of him. Do you think baseball should allow Trevor Bauer to obviously come back to baseball and have an opportunity to play professional baseball again in the major leagues?
Well, I don't know. I think they should let him come back. He wasn't really, he didn't get convicted of anything, but I think sometimes in baseball, and I've seen over the years, if something gets out to where a guy isn't most liked in the clubhouse, and a lot of the team, it's a culture in the whole clubhouse to where if all the GMs hear it, like one of the things I had learned early in my career is try not to burn any bridges. And when you burn a bridge, everyone talks to everyone, from the clubhouse staff to the GMs, and I'm kind of surprised that one team hasn't just given him a offer and brought him back, but I feel like everyone together is probably on the same page. Like, no, let's not let him back in. And he was a big part of the bringing the media in the clubhouse and having his own channel, and then with all the sticky stuff getting started, there was just a lot going on in that situation with him.
If you were a GM right now for that organization, or you were a GM for an organization right now, and you needed a pitcher, you needed a starting pitcher, and he's available, would you dig deep and bring him to your organization no matter how much backlash you would get from the media or somebody else from the organization? Would you actually dig deep and actually bring him to your organization if you have a chance to make the playoffs?
Well, no, I don't think so, honestly, because I was saying earlier, baseball's such a culture, and when there's too many distractions, it can, if it messes with 5 or 6 of your guys on your roster, it can throw you into a losing streak, and I don't know if that'd be best for the organization, and bringing a lot of noise and distraction is, I've learned is usually not the best in any pro sport, really.
So a lot of new rules that have come out in baseball recently, obviously after the lockout. I think your last year in MLB was after the lockout, that year after, and the first year of the pitch clock was right after that. So what are your thoughts to some of those, the pitch clock, the 3-batter minimum, stuff like that? I
don't really mind the 3-batter minimum too much. Earlier in a career, Java probably knows too, it was getting out of hand sometimes when you'd have the lefty in, and then the next hitter you bring in a righty, and, at least the 3-batter minimum, it teaches a lot of the guys in big leagues to learn how to use their pitchers against lefties and righties. And then the pitch clock, I feel like they should add a couple more seconds, because I feel like I would have had a hard time with the time that is now, because I would always look down and look up and get my sign, and I feel like I would be rushed a little too much. I think that should be adjusted by a couple more seconds.
For me too, I think adding a couple seconds too, and as you being left-handed, you guys cheat because you can actually stare at the runner.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, it was like playing the game of cat and mouse. like, can I hold? And then now it's hard enough to get guys out, let alone like, okay, I disengaged the rubber just to step off. Then I picked, okay, now I either have to pick them off, and then it's like, okay, I got to go. I got to look at the clock. And I think they should add. I was a guy that worked fast anyways. When it comes to that situation, why do you think stolen bases are up? They made the bags bigger, and they've done stuff like this. But I'd like your opinion on, there was a pitch today that was literally right down the middle, and he called it a ball. What is your feeling on ABS as far as, I'm an old school guy, like I love the umpires, but it's getting ridiculous on some of these things. And as well as I do, being in meetings with our PA and how umpires are not held responsible. Like, they don't have to answer questions. But when it's getting to this point and you're missing, they don't have to. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for baseball?
It's a good thing, because when I was rehabbing in AAA for a couple of games, because they've had the ABS there a while, and there's one inning where I didn't even know they were using it. I had a good inning, but during the inning, I asked where a pitch was, like the umpire, and he was like, I don't know. And I was like, why do you say I don't know? Like, and they're like, oh, they don't give them like the exact pitch locations in AAA, I guess. So I was like, I have no idea. But I think the ABS, how it runs in AAA, and seeing some of that, it runs really smooth, and it's it's a cool visual for the fans too, to see it up on the jumbotron and like seeing where the pitch misses. But like you were saying about the accountability for all the umpires, there's so many of them who, if you try to talk to them and they're rude back to you, you can't even ask them anything, and they're never held accountable, even if they blow a call. So I think this will work, and I'm glad that they're not rushing it into the big leagues, like if they would have put it in this year or even next year. So at least they'll have 2 years of spring training to use it, get used to it, and then be implemented from there. But I think accountability for the umpires will be big in that way.
Steroids has really been a problem when it came to the major leagues. And a lot of guys are not in the Hall of Fame. Alex Rodriguez will never see the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire, obviously. David Ortiz is in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Bagwell's in the Hall of Fame. Mike Piazza's in the Hall of Fame, because they were, even though a lot of people believe they were on steroids, there was no proof, obviously. Do you think that guys like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and some of these other guys should be in the Hall of Fame and should have like an asterisk on their name? Don't you believe? I mean, I believe it. We've asked a lot of ex-players and even players in the league, should these guys be in the Hall of Fame? Do you believe guys like that should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I agree. I think they should be in the Hall of Fame, because back then it wasn't really regulated as much, and, it sounded like everyone was doing it, and it wasn't regulated. And I think just the talent and how hard baseball is, and all the numbers those guys put up, like Barry Bonds' years, what he put up is ridiculous. And, even before he was accused of steroids, he probably would have been a Hall of Famer. And then with Roger Clemens, and, I think those guys with those accolades, a lot of people aren't even going to catch some of those records. So I feel like, to where, I feel like they should be in the Hall of Fame. They shouldn't wait too long to try to put them in, The
media shouldn't have choice on who goes to the Hall of Fame and who doesn't. Players should vote. Your peers should vote you in the Hall of Fame. Don Mattingly should be in the Hall of Fame. I know he didn't have that long career, 13 years, because of his back injury. Albert Bell should be in the Hall of Fame, the numbers that he was putting up. And then you have other guys. Tony La Russa was on the committee, obviously allowed to go to the Hall of Fame. The problem right now in baseball is there has to be some kind of control, and the players should have a say. The media, if they don't like somebody, or they couldn't interview them, or they just didn't like their attitude, they didn't obviously vote them in the Hall of Fame. Jorge Posada, this is one of the best catchers of the last 25 years. How many votes did he get? I don't even think he got 3% of the votes. And he was right off the ballot. Jeff Kent. How many second basemen were as good as Jeff Kent? Because he wasn't liked, or his notoriety as far as his peers, he wasn't inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think he was out of the picture within like 2 or 3 years after he had his opportunity to be on that list. Why do you think these players are still not in the Hall of Fame?
I think they should, eventually change it a little bit. It shouldn't be all up to the writers. I think the players should have some part in it. And then when they fall off the ballot, then do the people who are inducted vote? They can vote it in after. I don't know the exact
They change the rules all the time.
rules about it, right? Yeah, they change them all the time, but I think
now it's the committee vote if you've gone past.
Yeah, and I feel like some of those guys should have been in there because you see, the other Hall of Fames, they induct tons of people in there, and I feel like baseball, they're super limited and very picky. Like you're saying, the media. If you piss off the media in your career, you have no chance of being in the Hall of Fame. That's for sure.
So my last question, I know you got to go soon. Dodgers, you won a championship with in 2020 during the pandemic year. So what was that year like? And now a lot of people saying the Dodgers ruining baseball with this deferred money and all the big contracts they give it now. What are your thoughts to that?
He's being paid. No, I'm just kidding.
In 2020, that was probably one of the weirdest years ever. And people say it was like, it was like quarter of a year, like not really a real like earned championship, but what we had to go through as players and our families, and during the season, we had to do spit tests every day, and our families couldn't really go have a normal life because then if they got COVID and I got COVID, it was really hard. And when we were in Texas, we were just hotel to the field, and we were there for almost 40 days and very stressful. But in the end, winning the World Series is great. And then your second part of the question, I think the Dodgers are just using the system the right way, and they've built a really good culture there, and everything from their trainers to their coaches and everything, and you doing it the right way, and all other 29 teams can be doing the same thing, using more deferred money, building their culture a little differently, and bringing in people. And I think overall, as a player, I'm sure Joba would agree too, to where, if there's great culture and great trainers and coaching staff, and you're getting paid well, and you can have a chance to win a World Series, they're going to keep getting a lot of players.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the funny part that people don't realize. Like, deferred money's been happening for years. It's just not to the standard of realm that it's going right now. But I always like putting people on the spot because, you play for different teams. You have to have a favorite. I know that there's always like, your first ever appearance, your first ever call up, your World Series, and we both kind of experienced it. What was your best experience?
A single experience or a favorite team with experiences?
I mean, I'm going to say I experienced a lot of good times with your Rays teams.
Yeah, and Tampa by far is my favorite team overall, and I learned so much from. They would bring in veterans my first couple of years. I remember playing with Johnny Damon and Manny Ramirez one of the first years, and having Kyle Farnsworth in the bullpen, and Grant Balfour, and learning from those guys helped me play as long as I did in my career, and always picking their brain and learning in that way. And in Tampa, we were in the playoffs pretty much every year, and I was very lucky my first 5 years playing with competing to go to the playoffs every year. It was really awesome.
Jake, you mentioned Kyle Farnsworth. Have you seen what he looks like now?
Oh yeah, I think last time I was in Tampa, I saw him, and he's been playing semi-pro football in Orlando.
He went from retired to the MVP of the league because he was bored. And he's a black belt, 2 different martial arts.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I saw his son in Tampa a couple years ago and asked him about him. He's like, yeah, he did the pro football thing, and now he's trying to be more of a bodybuilder now.
It's ridiculous.
He's
not
big.
human. He's like a Greek guy.
He's always been that shredded.
Oh, yeah. His whole career, yeah. He's always been that shredded.
Yeah. He definitely, he looks like Zeus. Who do you think has the nastiest stuff?
Pitch-wise, I would say Paul Skeens. And then I think I've seen how he works and the work he puts in and just all of his pitches and how they move. And he seems like a guy who's going to keep adapting with the game and want to get better and better. And, his stuff just blows everyone away. And how many pitches he has is really nasty. But the young kid with the Brewers is when he gets more under his belt, because I've talked to other pitching guys and they said his extension is the farthest in baseball because he's so tall and he throws 102. So they're like, he's going to be really, really good.
It doesn't make any sense. You're 6'4", Joba's 6'3", and then you got Kyle Farnsworth. Anyways, Jake, we really appreciate the time.
I got one question for Joba.
Go ahead.
I want to see if he remembers this.
What do we got?
We're playing against each other in high A, and it's got to be the most strikeouts you've ever had in one game in the minor leagues. Our team was not that good, and I think you had 16 or 18 strikeouts against us and threw 8 innings.
Oh, you guys were in, first of all,
we were in Vero Beach.
Yeah, Vero Beach. It was hot.
It was so hot, yeah.
Yeah, I think I had 16. I just remember, we had that bootleg auxiliary locker room had to walk over.
Yeah,
Summers
I remember you
in
had
Florida.
16 strikeouts.
Yeah.
At Vero Beach, their outfield fence was 3.5 feet too.
Yep. Yeah,
not
I
fun
do
to-
remember
fun to
that.
play.
And we didn't have and the dugouts were small, and we didn't have no awning or anything. Like I think
There's
half
no
the time,
tops of the dugouts either. Yeah,
yeah,
no
I
tops
think
of
half the
dugouts.
time I went in and tried to cool off. Yeah, I do remember that one. That place sucked.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Well, Jake, I know you're busy. Hopefully next time station place, but we know you're busy and we really appreciate
Yeah,
the
no,
time.
that sounds good. Yeah, no, Mondays are probably my busiest days. Other days should work pretty well. So just
Well, we
just reach
appreciate
out
it.
and I'll come on again sometime.
Absolutely. We appreciate it because I know you're busy. Came on, he gave us the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, they have a daughter's team dragging the field right now. They're just finishing up softball practice. So
There you go, man. You're a girl dad.
Yep.
All right, Jake. We
All right, thanks
appreciate
again,
the
guys.
time, man.
Good to see you, Jake.
good to see you.
Yep, take care, bub.
Jake McGee.